The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Game Toppers, Sean looking oh so good in a tank top, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy of the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the gateway city, St. Louis, Missouri, it's The Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board, card, and probably not role-playing games. Today, the Dukes review The Guild of Merchant Explorers from AEG. Then, the Dukes take a look back at their reviews of The Initiative and Hadrian's Wall in a Dukes Quadruple-Take. And now, The Dukes of Dice.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And Alex.
And you're joining us for episode 278, All Over the Map. We're all over the map. At least that's what Steve O'Rourke, the Name Father, thinks. He named this episode because we're talking about maps in the... Okay, let me just say right now for the rest of the episode, I'm never going to remember the name of the stupid game we're reviewing. It's not stupid. It's actually pretty good. I hate the name.
Sean, okay, wait. Meta note here. So for folks who haven't listened before, I have to always apologize in these sections when we have to do this. Sean, I very rarely plan out the little segment I do right before you get into rules and before we jump into the reviews. I had a version of this planned out that I'm still going to do.
Okay.
But I want to let you know you've stolen at least some of my thunder. I'm
blowing up your spot. I apologize for blowing up your spot.
It is the Guild of Merchant Explorers is the name of the game.
Okay, so there's some mapping things out in there. There's sort of a little map element in one of the double take games, or the Initiative. Yeah, but I was going to say because I don't know much about the Initiative because you and Abby reviewed that. But also kind of in Hadrian's Wall, you've got the center, the left, and the right. I don't know, but we're all over the map. You're coming back from COVID. Things are crazy. Everything. We're all over the map here. So good job, Steve. Excellent title, and then Audible because that was not actually one of the 6 that you initially selected for the top 6, Alex.
But as we were talking about it and talking about the various names and what was at play here, it made more and more sense. And it actually technically, because Steve usually limits himself to one name suggestion, was not his official suggestion. So, sorry, Steve, you aimed to miss with that first one, but you actually hit your target. I don't know what to say. Craziness. But yeah, we get help naming all of our episodes with our Board Game Geek Guild. We're guild number 2008, and we'll give you the runners up at the end of the episode. Well, Alex, welcome back. How you feeling? I got to tell you, Sean, throughout all of this, I hadn't felt any of the sort of lung things you hear about with COVID. I still have sense of smell, sense of taste, and just now doing the intro, I definitely was feeling, and I don't know if it's pushing past the stuff in my throat because there's still a lot of sinusy stuff going on. I don't know if and by the way, apologies to listeners for that. I'm doing my best, but it's still some gunk in there. But I don't know if it was talking past that or a belated effect. I'm not sure. I've done some physical activity that would tell me that's not what's at play, but who knows? It's a weird mixed up world. Sean, I will tell you, I'm about to talk through some of the games I played out at the Gamers Ranch. My reunion back with the place out in beautiful Bland, Missouri, the wonderful ranch where Abby and I got married. Much to some people's surprise when I told that story out there, but it's true. The giant trampoline we had to move to get out of the way of photos is now gone. It's off in the woods, but he's added 7 pinball machines, so it's all good. The Gamers Ranch is nuts. You should go there if you're a gamer. It's amazing. I'm excited to talk about that later. I tested negative on the Sunday before heading out to the ranch, and I tested positive on the Wednesday after leaving the ranch. I don't think I caught it at the ranch. I think it was something that I had incubating before. It's a real shame. There were a lot of precautions taken. It didn't pan out. So then after that, Sean, I went and isolated at my folks' place on the bottom level here in St. Louis and was kind of confined to the basement. My folks aren't in town, so they weren't at risk, and just kind of hung out there because Abby wasn't infected yet. Ruby wasn't infected yet, and I hadn't seen them since I left for the Gamers Ranch. Unfortunately, that Saturday, I got to come home, which was nice, but it was because Abby tested positive herself.
Ruby probably had it. We never did an official test.
Sure.
Either way, she's fully recovered. She'd been out of daycare for the whole week, which was its own fun adventure, and both working and daycare, and it was a mess, but we're through it and recovering, and I'm excited to be back talking to you.
Well, good. I'm glad that it was then relatively mild for everybody.
Yeah, I'd say relatively mild in that we didn't have to go to urgent care, we didn't have to go to the hospital, nothing bad, but it has certainly had some long-lasting sinusy stuff that Abby and I are both kind of fighting off right now.
Sure. Well, glad to have you back. It was a nice relaxing week off, I think, for me. Was it? Probably not.
What was it though?
No, probably not.
Okay. I saw you saw the new Thor movie.
Yeah, the four of us went last night, and it was quite good. It was oh my goodness. It was Taika Waititi being full Taika. Like like Thor Ragnarok was enough of a success. There's like, all right, Taika, do what you want to do. And it almost felt like the Marvel version of What We Do in the Shadows, the movie. Kind of, not really. Not actually. Okay, let me rephrase that. Not in terms of feel or vibe, but just in terms of Taika being Taika.
Okay.
Just absurd. There's a certain level of absurdity to the movie. Like, take Thor Ragnarok's absurdity and take it up a notch. So we all enjoyed it.
Sean, may I also be the first to wish you a happy birthday?
Oh,
because this episode is dropping on your birthday.
Oh, it is. That's right. Well, thank you.
How old are you turning?
I will be 41 years old. 41.
Man.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And in fact, as of right now, I have a very early morning hearing about 45 minutes away on Monday morning.
Good.
And
you've had to drive way further for hearings.
Well, yeah. But it's far enough. Like, there's a chance it might go away. But the problem is I'm going to have to start driving before I know that it goes away, because we couldn't get a definitive answer from the court today. So that's how I'm going to spend my birthday. And then I think we might do seafood boil, go out for that Monday night. I think that's the plan. We'll see.
And then later that week, the ultimate Sean birthday celebration, SeanCon.
Yeah, I had a couple people at work say, hey, enjoy your birthday weekend. I'm like, no, that's not this weekend. That's next weekend, where a whole mini con has been planned around it. So yeah, we're pretty excited. Got the hotel room, and we're making plans. We've got dinner. We got a private room for dinner on Friday night, and then we'll kind of play by ear whether or not how comfortable everyone is going to, say, the piano bar or karaoke, or who knows. We'll kind of play that by ear. But yeah, very, very excited. So thank you for the birthday wish. Is singular, plural. One of the two.
It was just one wish.
Yes.
So
yes, thank you. The wish that my birthday be happy. And I too wish it will be happy.
And so it is unto you a birthday has been wished.
Verily, Duke Alex.
This is going to be a weird show. I'm getting such weird vibes right now on this show. I can't tell you why. I don't know. Not bad, just weird.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right.
You want to kick off the recent plays? You want to actually talk about board games?
Sure. Alex, let's talk about a game called Imperium, the Contention. So if I said, Alex, do you want to play a game called Imperium, the Contention? What would you say to that?
0.0% chance.
Okay, now do me a favor. Look it up.
Okay.
Imperium, the Contention. And I want you to tell me, based off this particular box art, what that's going to do for you. So this is by a publishing company. I believe it's called The Contention, or might be Contention Games, or The Contention Studios, Inc. I don't know, but Contention's in their title.
It's Contention Games. Contention Games is the name of the studio.
Okay. And it's designed by Gary Dvoretsky. So looking at this box cover, what do you see, Alex? Tell me what your eyes are feasting on. What visual sumptuous imagery?
I will give you my opinions.
Yeah.
But I'm sending this to Abby, and I'm going to get her live feedback on this box cover because it is wild. Hang on. I'm sending the message to her now.
So let me say this. This has been at Empire for a couple months, 6 months or more.
the way Eugene was describing it.
Sean, this looks awful.
Yeah, it really does. Like, this is literally a game that if I saw this on the shelf, I would not stop to pick it up and look at the back.
But Sean, you know what's odd about this one?
Yeah.
It does look like a little like Raquel on the box cover. Do you see what I'm seeing?
No.
Yeah, bottom left. It's a little like Raquel.
I thought you were talking about the dude with the hood on the right.
I wasn't talking about the dude with the hood on the right.
I was like, wow, shots fired.
No, bottom left. A little Raquel.
All right, hold on. I'm going to cover her eyes to see if it's a lower face thing. No. I'll cover her mouth to see it's no. Nose is completely wrong. Raquel has more of an aquiline nose, kind of like the Atreides, which is why I fell in love with her, because I'm like, oh, she's kind of like a Hispanic Atreides. Not really.
Okay, first bit of feedback. Abby says it's ... fine.
Here's the thing, right? Like, the art's not bad. It's not that it's bad art. Like, it's actually quite good, but there's just a whole vibe you're getting from the cover. So listeners at home, look up Imperium the Contention. So let me again, had I seen this on the shelf?
Wait, no, I got the gem. Hang on. Abby says, girl in the front just seems annoyed to be there. Everyone else looks like they're from different games.
Well, yeah, it's sort of like Twilight Imperium in the sense that there are all these different races that look, they're disparate races. And, okay, so I have probably literally seen this game dozens of times at the shop and just completely like filtered it out from my mind because I just had zero interest in it. I walk in to Empire for Duke's Wednesday night, and Eugene and Matt are at a table, and they're like, hey, do you want to play Imperium the Contention? And I'm just like, okay, sure. Why not? So it's a card game. It's a 4X space game. It's kind of like a Twilight Imperium that is condensed down to about a 20-minute per player game. So about an hour for 3 players. And you are different alien races. You lay out, instead of like hexes like in Twilight Imperium, you have these cards that are arranged in a grid. I think it's like 4x5 or something like that. And they're all face down with the exception of each player's home planets. Each of your home planets is considered a shipyard, meaning you can build new ships there. And there's also some sort of action that you could potentially take there. Okay. Everyone has their own unique deck. So it's asymmetric decks based on your race. And you're going to draw a certain number of cards to start. At the start of a round, everyone draws a card at the start of the turn. And then in player order, you're going to take turns moving your ships up to their speed value. And your ships are basically cards. So your ships are cards. There's certain actions that are cards. There are stations that are cards. There might be, I think, modifier cards as well. And so you're able to move your ships. And then you're also able to take one action for the planets that you control. Or you can take sort of the main generic action, which is settle, where you can settle a world system that's unsettled and colonize it, that's adjacent to one of your elements. Whether it's a system that you already have colonized or you have a ship that's moved out, you can do that. You could do this colonize action adjacent. Okay. And then there is this simultaneous card play. Once everyone's in that, they then choose a card from their hand, put it face down, and reveal simultaneously. Now, everyone has a bluff card, and it might be the bluff card that you play. Otherwise, it might be one of these ships, one of these actions, and you have to pay a certain amount of resources that it says on the card. And so you do that, you flip them over, you resolve them in turn order, you pay for them, and let's say I played a ship out. So this ship is going to have an attack, it's going to have a defense, and it's going to have a movement, and then it might have some sort of special ability. Like there's a board special ability that basically says if this ship destroys another ship and it survives, I get to basically capture that destroyed ship and put it directly into play under my control. There's one called Troops, where anytime you destroy another colony, you can immediately colonize it with one of your colony discs because you've landed troops there. All right, so different abilities. You basically need to be able to do damage in one go to another target, whether it's another ship, whether it's an enemy station, whether it's an enemy colony, because damage doesn't persist from round to round. So it's kind of like Magic in that sense. If you don't completely kill a creature, it's still going to stick around for the next turn. This was actually pretty good. It was giving me a Reload vibe, the game that we reviewed a couple weeks ago, where it was just like, kind of a streamlined 4X space game that went fairly quick. There were some interesting things that you did. I didn't hate it. It was pretty good. I would totally play it again. I played the SEC, the SEK, that are aliens from another universe that are escaping some horrible thing in their universe. And one of the cool things that I had was this station that let me basically create a dreadnought token each turn, which is this like 8 attack, 8 defense, 2 movement. I can only have 2 of them at a time, but I just automatically create one every turn. But it was 9 resources. By the way, you start off the game 2 resources or 1 resource, and then it's another resource for every colony that you control. The end goal here is to have a certain number of victory points. I forget what they're called, but you get victory points for destroying other people's colonies. There are other game effects that might give you points. It was pretty decent. I was pretty surprised. The only reason that Eugene even brought it out, because this is not a Eugene style game, is because he read a very positive review of the game on spacebiff.com. And he's like, "Oh, we have that in the shop, so let's give it a shot." But a terrible name. Just a terrible name. Imperium the Contention. Imperium, like, you're not allowed to use Imperium. It's funny, I had these thoughts, and then I was reading the Space Biff review just before the show, and also complaining about the name and just the general genericness of it. I think you would be like, "Oh, that's fine. That was fine," but you'll never want to play it again. You play it once and might have some fun with it, but it's not your style of game.
It's rated an 8.1 on BGG on enough reviews to where that's meaningful.
Okay. Yeah, I was quite shocked.
Sean, can I tell you the other game that they're so that was their 2021 release? Can I tell you what they're also tagged in as their 2022 release? Slay the Spire, the board game.
Oh. Well, okay. Yeah, I'm looking at that now. So it's going to be, let's see, a cooperative deck building adventure. Craft a unique deck, encounter bizarre creatures, discover relics of immense power, and finally become strong enough to slay the Spire. I mean, it can't be a direct port, right? I don't think that's going to be the case.
I don't think that would work, no. But I mean, if you're going to try and implement that as a tabletop experience, based on what you described, it sounds like they can pull off a game with a decent number of cards.
I think so. I think so. I'm relatively optimistic then. Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go.
So anyway, that is Imperium, the Contention.
The Contention. Sean, can you get the Void Scepter back? That Void Scepter is what you're supposed to be going for in the game. That's the thematic point.
Oh, we had a lot of inappropriate jokes about the Void Scepter.
Oh boy. All right. Well, I'm going to move on from that.
Yeah.
And talk about the Gamers Ranch, and was out there for a game that an event Jamie was hosting. It was interesting, Sean. A lot of folks from the St. Louis area, not everyone, but a good amount of folks, and the vast majority this was their first time at the ranch. So I sort of served as a de facto tour guide at times. It was my first time playing the disc golf course out there. That was a lot of fun. Though some people ended up with ticks. Be careful. Spray well. There's a lot of ticks in them woods. Just saying. But I'll talk about, so 3 distinct plays. I played more things than this, but 3 memorable plays. One is one of the best dexterity games of all time, and a game I need to get a proper board for at some point. Crokinole, phenomenal dexterity game for folks who don't know. You slide discs, you battle head-to-head. Sean, you're giving a weird kind of pursed lip here. What's going on?
Had you never played Crokinole before?
Absolutely, played it tons of times.
Okay. I'm just checking. It just seemed like a weird. Guys, let me tell you about this.
Yeah, this hot new release. Yeah, Crokinole.
It's called Uno, and oh boy, I gotta tell you, watch out for those reverses though. Okay, go on.
I played more of Crokinole at my wedding and at this event than I did typical games. We had one of the games, Sean. We set the target score to hit at 400. It was too high. There wasn't enough scoring happening, and so it was a game that lasted at least 2.5 hours. A single game of Crokinole. And
wow.
midway through that game, Sean, I kept leaving my shots short. So basically, when you're firing at an open board, you don't have any opponent discs on it, you have to try and touch a center ring. And I kept leaving my shots short, which meant they got wiped off to the side. And that's a big missed opportunity in Crokinole. You don't want to do that. And the third time in a row I did it, I angrily swiped the disc off to the side, and I cut my finger, my index finger, my shooting finger, on one of the metal pegs in the middle of the board. Sean, I got a Crokinole injury.
Okay. I got nothing. I have no response to that.
No, it's fair. It's not smart. So that was one memorable play, was a very long game of Crokinole that resulted in me having to have a bandaged finger the rest of the weekend. The next one I'll talk about, Sean, is more not necessarily because I loved it, because it's of interest. This is one of the nominees, I believe, for the Kennerspiel. It's the third nominee for the Kennerspiel this year, the German Game of the Year award. Nominated alongside, oh no, I should have looked this up ahead of time, Dune Imperium. Oh, and what's the deduction game? Cryptid.
Yep.
Cryptid, Dune Imperium, and I believe the third one is Living Forest. If not, it's a Spiel nominee, but it's definitely Kennerspiel. Okay. This, Sean, is a game where you are trying to hit a threshold of points in a certain way. So either you're trying to have 12 flower tokens, 12 different protective trees, 12 lotus flowers. If you achieve any of those goals during your turn, during a round, you win the game. The game ends hard stop. It works in basically a simultaneous phase and then a turn-based phase. So the simultaneous phase is I go to my deck and I flip up cards and it's a push your luck game. If I get too many of a certain symbol, I bust and I only get one action. If I don't bust, I get two different actions. And those actions can be plant a new tree. It could be buy a new animal to do a deck building thing. It could be move your piece around the board and get bonus actions. If you pass people while moving around the board, you steal bonus tokens. So I might steal one of the 12 lotus flowers I need to win the game. I might steal a unique tree I need to win the game. But basically, it's push your luck in that phase, and then you execute the actions in turn order. The game is smooth, the game is beautiful, and the game is not particularly interesting in my mind. I think as a more entry level kind of thing, I think there will be gamers that like it. Again, it's gorgeous art. It has a great table presence. To me, it just kind of fell flat. I'm also not as in love with some push your luck games. So, for instance, we talked about Cubitos. I loved Cubitos. That had a ton going on with it, and also had simultaneous turns. This one felt more to me like what's the push your luck one, Sean, that you love, and I'm just kind of okay on, and I'm in the minority on not loving it. It was a North Star game. It was a Kennerspiel nominee at one point. What am I thinking of, Sean? It involves brewing potions. Push your luck.
Oh,
pulling stuff out of a bag. Quacks of Quedlinburg.
Quacks of Quedlinburg. Okay.
Yeah. It had some kind of vibes to that, but even maybe not quite as good. Multiple paths to victory. I don't know, just kind of fell flat. So that's Living Forest. I still would favor Dune Imperium of the three. The next one I'll talk about, though, Sean, was up there for game of the weekend for me. Sean, have you heard of Cat in the Box?
I have not heard of Cat in the Box.
Sean, I'm going to describe this game to you. Trick-taking meets quantum mechanics.
All right, that sounds interesting. So it's a...
Meets area control.
Okay, all right.
Area control, trick-taking, quantum mechanics.
It's a little Heisenberg uncertainty principle.
That's exactly what they're going for with this game.
Okay.
It is a trick-taking game where all of the cards have no suit.
Okay.
No suit at all. There are 5 of each card, but only 4 suits you can play in. Red, yellow, blue, and green. The deck gets dealt out. You pick a card to discard. And then you play until you have 1 card left in hand. or until there's a paradox and everything blows up. When I play a card in this game, Sean, I declare the suit. So I might say this is a blue 5, and I will take one of my markers and mark that it in fact is a blue 5.
Mm-hmm.
You, Sean, have to follow suit. Unless you declare, none of my cards are blue. And so for the rest of the round, you mark that you can't play blue cards.
Oh, wow.
And now you might want to play up into control. Before you start the round, you bid on the number of tricks you're going to win, and you can score points in 2 ways. Either I meet my bid, and then I score for area control, basically the largest clump of things I can get together on a board where you mark what cards played. Because, Sean, you can't have 2 blue 5s. So once a blue 5's played, it's played. No one else can play that card. And once you declare you have no blues, you can't play blues anymore. So you will run into a situation, because there are 5 5s in the deck and only 4 suits, where it might run out of plays they can make. You're trying to make your bid, so if you make your bid, congrats, you score for your largest clump, which might be 5 points. Otherwise, you score for a number of tricks you have. Unless you cause a paradox, in which case you lose a point for every trick you get. And the round stops immediately, and everyone else will score based on if they met their bid, whatever else happened. It's a really cool game.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
It's super interesting. I think you, as a trick-taking connoisseur, will find it really interesting. We happen to have this because one of the people at the ranch, Henry, had gone to Origins and scooped up one of the dozens of copies they had out at Origins. That's the only reason we had access to this. It was ported over. It was originally published in Japan, and I think it's, I might be screwing this up, Bezier? Bezier might have this one in the U.S. Maybe. Hang on. I don't want to get this wrong. It is Bezier. Bezier Games has this one, Sean. Worth keeping your eye on if you like trick-taking games and you're intrigued by the concept of trick-taking meets quantum mechanics. It's exactly as cool as it might sound. It lives up to its principle and what it's trying to do. I think you'll really like this. It's not going to be better than Skull King for you, Sean, but I think just on principle, you're going to enjoy this game.
Yeah, it looks like it's on pre-order right now.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that sounds pretty sweet. I'm looking at, I mean, even the components are really cool. Like
it's amazing. It's gorgeously produced. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm down to give that a shot. Interesting.
So anyway, that's Cat in the Box. Don't cause a paradox, or else, you lose points. I did very badly in this, by the way. I actually made a play that was so dumb, I caused myself to paradox. I won a trick that caused myself to on the next lead paradox, and I could have seen it coming, and it was the dumbest thing ever. I was not good at this game, but it's fun.
All right, cool.
So that's a handful of games I played. Back to you, Sean.
Let me talk about a handful of games that I've played, although not really a handful. Well, it's a handful in terms of time and just amount. So 2 things. Warhammer 40,000. I've been getting plays of that in again. The brand new codex for my OG army, the Chaos Space Marines, just hit last weekend. I picked it up on release day, and then the next day I had a game scheduled for my Black Legion Chaos Space Marines. They're like the poster child of the Chaos Space Marines, Alex, led by none other than the man himself, Abaddon the Despoiler. What? Abaddon in the house? No, okay. He is the leader of quasi-leader, because it's hard to organize a bunch of like heretics and traitors and bad dudes. But as much as he can be, he's the leader of the Chaos Space Marines, especially the Black Legion. And boy, howdy, there's a beautiful new model. I don't know if you saw him. I posted him on Twitter a couple months ago. I have the new model of him, and I had the old version of him. The new model is like 2 or 3 times the size of the old model. Like, he's just a big, beefy boy. And his brand new rules, he is just a blender. He is just this fury, this hatred just oozing out of him, destroying things. He was awesome. He was super cool. Learned a lot from that first game. Been watching a lot of YouTube videos and reading a lot of analysis of the codex, doing a lot of studying, making some little print up poker chips for some handy reminders, because you forget a lot of stuff with the new army.
a lot of like, oh, in this particular situation, this unit gets +1 to hit. In this other situation, this unit gets to re-roll its saves or whatever. So a lot of little reminders. So there's a lot of work that goes into Warhammer, aside from just painting these guys. I've had this army mostly painted for the last 20 years, and it's just been about kind of updating them. So it's been really cool. I should be getting another game in this weekend, and yeah, enjoying Warhammer. The other thing that I would want to talk about is an 18xx game. I'm keeping these both kind of short because this isn't really our bread and butter, so to speak. But, I've been playing a ton of 18xx the last couple of years. We played this monster of a game, 1817. It takes place in the Eastern US. It starts technically before there are even really trains, because there's some initial purchasing of stocks and not stocks, purchasing of, now I'm completely forgetting. But let me tell you, this was a wild game. Matt played this when he went to the Trax 18xx convention in Colorado a couple months ago, and he said it's going to be a 10 to 12 hour game, like no question, especially for our first play. So we made plans to start 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning, play for about 7 hours, keep it on a table where it was going to be untouched at Empire, and then we were going to finish the following Wednesday night. That was the plan, at least. So we did that. We played about 7 hours on Sunday, and then on Monday we learned that our fourth, so it's me, Rory, Matt, and then Lynn. Lynn and her family got COVID on Monday. Yeah, so her husband got it, and so we're pretty sure, everyone else was fine. The other three of us were fine. And so we wound up finishing the game with the three of us because it's the kind of situation where we couldn't leave it out, and we were all going to forget. And so we sort of mathed out. It's something you can do in the latter rounds of an 18xx game where you can just sort of math it out and not go through all the motions and take 4 hours of gameplay and do it in an hour. So that's what we did. What's wild about this game is it is super complex. Like, there is no way any brand new 18xx player should start with this. Like, you should have a dozen 18xx games underneath your belt before you even try this. And even then it's a lot. I was over-prepared. I completely over-prepared. I read the rules. I read the rules, read a strategy guide. I listened to this like hour-long podcast just about this game. Lynn had found a couple days before. She's like, hey, you should read this or listen to this. And so going into the game, I was just like, I know too much about this game, but I don't know how to execute any of it correctly. And it was too much. Like, I was over-prepared, and it was really difficult. I came in second. Matt came in first. We had some fun kind of dumping on Rory's companies because it's a super mean game. You can basically short shares where you get paid the share value of a stock, but then you have to pay back, eventually pay back whatever the current share value is. And you're hoping that's going to tank the company. So you have to pay less, but then you have to also pay out as that company makes money. It's really interesting stuff. There's crazy company mergers. You have these like size 2 companies that can merge into size 5. Then your size 5s can merge into size 10s. It was crazy, but it was awesome. And we're struggling to figure out how often we can play this because there's this part of me that's like, I don't want to play another 18xx game until I've played this like a dozen more times. But it's also a 10 to 12 hour game. So that's a problem. We've got a seat for you at Sean Con for 1817.
You're doing this at Sean Con.
No, we're not. I'm just joking. There may be a play of 18 Chesapeake, which is regarded to be a fairly good entry level 18xx game. I think Ellie will likely want to play. He played 1846 and he did really well. If there were going to be a time that you played an 18xx game, it might be 18 Chesapeake, but we'll see. It's still like a 5 hour game.
Okay.
So we'll see. We'll play it by ear.
All right. Yeah, you got to get that Sean Con list ready to go. I'm just saying.
it's, it's hard with Sean Con. It's hard because like people are kind of filtering in and out, but yeah, I've got some ideas and we'll see.
Okay. All right.
So anyway, that's the new Chaos Space Marine Codex for Warhammer 40,000, and that's 1817.
So Sean, I got in a play of something that got out of the blue the top praise you're going to get for a game, which was Shut Up and Sit Down saying this is the best game they've ever played, or at least some members of that review squad. And it sent folks into what's this all about? What's this game? And Sean, this is a game I think you would love. Not just like, but love. Game called Blood on the Clock Tower. Sean, do you have basic familiarity with this game?
Yeah, I do. I took a look at this online, and yeah, I agree with you. This is something I really want to play.
So, Blood on the Clock Tower is I would describe it as a more advanced version of Werewolf that helps solve the player elimination problem to a degree. So, Werewolf, for folks who don't know, is a game where you might have, 10, 11 people. It's usually played late at night. People will play it all the time at conventions. And there's a secret werewolf and possibly some assistance for that werewolf. And at night, the werewolf will make a kill. By day, people can vote on who they think the werewolf is and execute them. There are different powers that might give you information about the werewolf, or might make you want to die, or might make any number of different scenarios or odd things happen within the game. But Werewolf, one of the key problems it has for a lot of folks is if you get killed the first night, too bad, so sad. You don't get to talk the rest of it. You don't get to play. You don't get to do anything. Blood on the Clock Tower is like that. So there is a secret demon, I guess is the best way to describe it. There's been a murder. There's a secret demon running around town with some demon assistants. And that lead demon, much like a werewolf, is going to kill people at night. And their demon assistants are going to help stir things up. Several differences here. One, the roles you can possibly have are wild and varied and dependent on scenarios. And so the scenario we played was sort of more of an entry-level scenario of this, and it still had a lot of different weird permutations. You might not know who the exact demons are. We had a demon that allowed so in our play of this, I was the lead demon. I was the lead killer in my first play of this. And Jamie was the poisoner. And basically he could pick someone at night and have their power not work. So there was one player who could, once per game, pick someone that they believed to be the main demon and say, you're the main demon, you're dead, I fire my crossbow. Unstoppable, can't be countered. If they were poisoned, it doesn't work. If they're not firing at the demon, it doesn't even kill the person. It doesn't do anything. And there are other people with different other abilities. Monks can protect people. All of these play together in different ways, the nuances of which aren't necessarily important. The game changer to me, though, Sean, is when you die in this game, in some rule sets, you may still be able to play a key influential role, but in all rule sets, you absolutely play a role. One, you're still in the game. You still have to close your eyes at night. You still have to do everything else. You don't get to have the big reveal of, oh, that's who killed me, but I have to stay quiet about it. You're just as in the dark as everyone else, the rest of the game. But you have one and only one ghost vote you get to use. So from beyond the grave, if there's a daytime vote on, I think this person is the main demon, we should off them because we're going to lose the game if we don't. Mm-hmm. You, as the ghost player, once per game, can contribute votes to that. Pretty cool.
Okay.
There's also multiple nominations. So, for instance, let's say there's 9 people left in the game. I might nominate you, Sean. Let's say you got 5 votes. That's enough for you to die, but you can then nominate someone else. And if they get more votes than you, then that other person will die instead. All of this is complicated because there's a lot of different power interactions. There's a role in the game called the Drunk, which has you believe you're a role, but you're actually not. And so you might get terrible information for the remainder of the game. There's a lot of different interactions and things going on with this. Sean, what's going on?
So I apologize, Alex. So I ordered some foam, some special cut foam for my Necron army for Warhammer, and it just got delivered. And I asked Raquel to bring it in so no one steals my sweet special cut foam. And for some reason, she brought it down to the basement. I guess. Oh, yeah. She thought I meant, I asked her, can you please go get it? And I think she thought she meant, or I meant, can she bring it down to me? Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, all right. So, Sean, I mentioned all of this to say there's a lot of complication to this. And if you look at some of the different chipsets and different demons and scenarios and whatever else, and you can do custom scenarios, it takes someone with deep knowledge of this to run a good game of this. We
Sure.
were lucky in that Carly, who's the online community coordinator at Lucky Duck Games, but also is one of a handful, I think 12, fabled storytellers for Blood on the Clock Tower.
Oh.
And is actually brought out to conventions to run this game. Happened to be at the ranch and happened to run 2 games of this for us. And she did a phenomenal job. A phenomenal job. Made for an engaging story. You replay the story and kind of what happened afterwards. There were things, even though I was doing the killing, things I didn't know happened at different points. Things I had wrong about the whole puzzle. But a really satisfying moment. I had a game where I never had any heat on me. And I was able to kind of build a nice circle of trust and won and felt great about it. The next play of this, Sean, I was a villager, and I did a terrible job. I shared part of information with someone, and then I told them I'm not going to share this with anyone else, and then I immediately shared it with like 5 other people, and I got rightfully voted off on night 2 and just kind of haunted people the rest of the game as an annoyed ghost and probably derailed any possible chance we had of winning. And in fact, we lost. I wasted my ghost vote on revenge rather than actually using it for, the greater good. So, yeah, that's Blood on the Clock Tower. I think it's phenomenal, but it needs someone who can moderate and moderate well.
So here's the question. Is it better than the Resistance Avalon?
For who? So
For me, the only person I really care about.
For you?
me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh,
I think the complexity and the complexity and interactions of the roles, like Sean, I feel like, hang on. I'm gonna take a quick pause. I'm gonna pause one moment on the podcast. And I'm gonna send you a shot I took of the roles that we were playing with in this game. And you can tell me, just based off of looking at that, if you think you would enjoy this game more or less than Resistance Avalon.
Well, and while you're doing that, I mean, I'll say it's not some. There's a certain purity to the Resistance Avalon where it really is about mathing things out and the social deduction and the actual deduction. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, every social deduction game I've played since, I'm like, oh, it's pretty good. Yeah, it's fine, but it doesn't come close to Avalon. All right, so it has arrived. Yeah, all right. I mean, yeah, that's a lot of different roles. You've got your librarian, your washerwoman, your investigator, your chef, your empath. The empath, each night you learn how many of your 2 alive neighbors are evil. Chef, you start knowing how many pairs of evil players there are. Butler, each night choose a player, not yourself. Tomorrow, you may only vote if they are voting too.
Well, and Sean, what happens at the start of the game, the player who's the main baddie, in this case the imp, gets to see the 3 roles not used in the game as bluff material.
Sure.
And so I was able to successfully bluff one of the roles.
Okay.
I don't know.
Don't get me wrong. I want to play it, and it sounds really awesome, and I'm sure I'll enjoy it quite a bit.
I think so. And I think a chance that you'll enjoy it more than Resistance Avalon, although you won't be able to play it with as many groups or as readily. It's not as teachable. There's any number of caveats I have to put on that. But as an experience, I think you'll love the experience.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I'll keep an eye out for it.
There you go. That's Blood on the Clock Tower. And Sean, that is 44 minutes or thereabouts of recent. Oh, no. There goes my voice. Of recent plays and things we've done. After the break, a review of a game.
Well, Alex, it appears that the Game Toppers 3.5 Kickstarter has come and gone, raising almost $300,000. Whew, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of cheese.
Now, Sean, you said it appears.
Are you indicating that this is perhaps an illusion and there's a secret Kickstarter campaign going on at the same time while the main campaign appears to have ended? There's a parallel reality where
it's over.
It's
over.
Okay, sorry.
It's just done. It's done. It's done. It's done. And if you want to get, some of the stuff from the Kickstarter, I guess you're kind of out of luck.
Yeah, unless there was some sort of alternative reality where perhaps those who weren't on time, they weren't early either. They're not early. They're not on time. They've come to this. What's the word I'm looking for? They want to pledge.
If only you could have a tardy pledge. You can make a tardy pledge.
Yeah, a tardy play. Yeah, that's sort of what I'm looking for, but it's not quite. So it's again, you wanted to pledge early, but you didn't. You want to pledge on time, but you didn't. So there's a third state there. Well, anyway, that state I think is actually open. Oh, it's open. Oh, late pledges. Late pledges are open,
Oh,
Sean.
that's the word. Yeah, so if you want to get the new Mycroft or the new Moriarty, if you want to get leg kits, if you want to get some awesome new playmats, some with art by Vincent Dutrait, then you can go over to Kickstarter. You can look up the Game Toppers 3.5. There's this big blue late pledge button. If you're on a phone, you push it with your thumb. If you're on a computer, you click it with your mouse, unless it's your touch screen. I guess you could, usually with a touch screen, you're not using a thumb, it's usually your index finger.
Use a thumb if you want to. I'm not judging. Yeah, look, I'm not judging what finger you want to use to press the button. Just, press the button.
Now, it does say late pledge starting June 2nd. That's come and gone for a limited time. So I would hurry. And I believe we're looking still at kind of a quick fulfillment here. So I would definitely do this sooner rather than later. These are very high quality table toppers. I play on them all the time. Alex, you've got one in your home. These are fantastic. Can't recommend them highly enough. So definitely go check it out on the Kickstarter or go check out GameToppersLLC.com.
Remember, if it's not a showstopper, it's not a game topper. Ah, Traveler, good to see you. Have you been out merchanting guilds or exploring merchants? Or perhaps gilding exploring merchants? What has it been, Traveler? What have you been doing? Have you been to the Guild of Merchant Explorers?
That's it? There's no end to
No, that's it.
Oh.
No, that's it.
Cue the music. The Guild of Merchant Explorers, which is the last time I'll remember the name of the game because it's a bunch of generic words thrown together.
Sean, do we have to add a new section to our review of, so we have typically rules and components and gameplay and theme. Do we have to add the name of the game? Does that just go into theme or is that at the top? Where do we discuss that in our review?
Normally it's just a thing that's there and it's, it's either fine or it's good or it's not important, but literally, all right, take out the article the preposition of, you have Guild Merchant Explorers. Just generic. It's hey, let's play the vanilla of plain cardboard. It's just not it's not evocative of anything. It's just a bunch of words thrown together. And you're am I getting these in the right order? Is it the Merchants Guild of Explorers? Is it the Exploring Guild of Merchants? It's just not, it doesn't stick and it's not memorable. But it's a really good game. I really enjoyed it.
This is the most negative we've gotten this early in a review. And to be clear, you've spoiled it a little. The game doesn't deserve this level of negativity. No. But it's a terrible name.
Okay, here let's say this. Imperium the Contention is a better name.
Oh no. Oh, I'm not sure I agree, but the fact that they're close is a problem.
Well, I can say Imperium, the Contention. You can't do that with the Guild of Merchant Explorers. See, I just added goofiness to it. Anyway, all right. This is designed by all-star design team Matthew Dunstan and Brett J. Gilbert. Longtime listeners will know that one of their game designs, Elysium, is a Boxcars Award winner. Alex and I, years and years ago, both gave this game a 6. They have a lot of other games. I've enjoyed other titles of theirs. So obvious, and I'm kind of getting ahead to expectations. I think this was highly, we both had very high hopes for this game. Sean, design team.
Sean,
yes.
Would you say your intro to this review so far has been
all over the map.
Oh boy. All right, let's talk about this game. So pretend it's a flip and write, except there's no writing. You're using tokens instead of writing, because at a certain point certain points in the game, you have to erase portions of the board. All right, but that's how it kind of feels. It kind of feels like a flip and write in certain ways. So you are, I don't know, you're a king, you're a something, and you have a map out in front of you, and this map has a bunch of hexes, and there are different clumps of terrain grouped together. Might be 3 spaces together, might be 4 or 5, 6 spaces together. So there's grasslands, there are deserts, there's water, there's mountains, and then there's also some special places on the map. So usually around the center, there's your capital, your starting space. There are some ruins that you may want to explore, and then there are also some magical towers that are spread along the edges of the map. There's I think 4 of them that are around the edges of the map. Now, the game's going to last 4 ages, and in each of those ages, one player is going to flip over these cards. That's going to apply to everybody. There are initially 5 cards. So you've got a card that says, place your little tokens, your little cubes on 2 grassland spaces. So when that happens, everyone's going to do that. So what you need to do is you need to place a cube on a grassland space that's either adjacent to your capital or adjacent to one of the cubes you've previously placed in the round. Or if it's in later rounds, you may have developed these villages, and you can place adjacent to villages as well. And I'll explain how villages come about. So that's one card. Place 2 grasslands. They don't have to be together or adjacent, just 2. And you could piggyback off one, right? So you could say, hey, I'm going to place this one, and now this new green space is adjacent, so I'll do that too. All right. There's also 2 desert spaces. Again, any 2 desert spaces that are legal placements. There's the single mountain space. And then there's the water space, which is actually 3 water spaces, but they have to be in a straight line. And then there is any 2 spaces of your choice. They don't have to be the same, but they do have to be adjacent. So those are the initial 5. But also in that first round, you have the special 1 card. And when the 1 card gets flipped from this little mini deck, everyone's going to draw a special action card, actually 2 special action cards from the deck, from a separate deck. And then they're going to keep one of those cards that they're going to be able to use each new age. And these are usually powerful abilities, and they're varied abilities. So one of them might say, drop down cubes on any 4 water spaces, again, legal spaces. And then for each cube that you just placed, if there's a village space next to it, then you could place an extra one there. Or it might say place 5 in a contiguous path of this type or this type. A bunch of variety here, tons of different spaces. Oh yeah, I also forgot that there are merchant spaces that are of a subtype of the different terrain types. And I'll explain those in a second. Okay, so you're basically going to flip over these 6 cards. They're going to get shuffled up. You're going to flip them over. Once you've gone through all of that, that's the end of the round. Now let's talk about what happens during the round, though, because as you're placing these cubes out, you're trying to get certain things. So some spaces might have coins, which are VP points. And when you cover them, you're going to get 1, 2, 3. I think there's even some that have like 4, maybe even 5. But they're
on some maps I've seen 4. I don't know about 5, but
yeah, they're few and far between. Most of them are 0. Some are 1, some are 2. Now, what's really cool is that when you completely fill in a clump of one terrain type, so let's say that there are these 4 grasslands that are all together. If I fill them all in, I can immediately replace one of those cubes with a village. That village is going to persist from round to round. Plus, I'm going to get some amount of points for placing a village. Less points earlier in the game, more points later in the game. I also might use one of my cubes to cover up a ruin space. Once I cover up a ruin space, I put a little token on it to show that I've explored that ruin and I can't explore that ruin in later parts of the game. And then I'm going to draw a card from the ruin deck, and it might be some special effect like, hey, you can just place another cube. Or it might be some sort of set collection for endgame scoring. It might say if you know, for every tower that you explore, it's worth an extra point. So that's an option too, those ruins. You also have the magical towers. Again, there are 4 of them at the edge of the map. If you place those, you're going to score a certain amount of points for your first one, a lot more points for your second one, a lot more points for your third one, and so on with the fourth one. Finally, there are these merchant spaces. And when you have created a contiguous group of cubes or your capital or villages from one merchant space to the other, you're going to score a number of coins equal to the multiple of the value. So some of them are 2, some of them are 3, some of them are 4. So if I connect a 2 and a 3, I'm going to get 6 spaces. But now I've exhausted one of those merchant spaces. I put a little marker down to show that I can't use that again. However, the other one that I use, if I connect that to another merchant space, I can still do that multiple. And again, I'm choosing which of the 2 I'm exhausting. All right. End of the round, you're going to clear off your cubes. Your villages are going to stay. All of the tokens that you've placed down to say that you've explored ruins or you've exhausted a merchant space, those are going to remain. You're going to shuffle up the little mini deck, but now we're also going to add in the Age 2 card. And so now as we're flipping cards over, when the Age 1 card flips up, it means that Age 1 special action card that you picked that's unique to you, you're going to use that ability. But when the Age 2 card flips over, again, everyone's going to draw 2 more of these crazy action cards and pick one, and they're going to get to keep using those round to round. You're doing the same in Age 3, and then in Age 4, you basically get a 1, 2, 3 card that gives you the choice of reusing your Age 1 action, Age 2 action, or Age 3 action a second time that round. So yeah, you're going to do this. There's going to be some end game scoring, potentially based again on what ruin cards, relics, I forget what they're called, but those cards you've collected. And whoever has the most points is going to be the winner of the game that we're talking about, the Guild of Merchants and Explorers.
Close.
Something like that.
You had most of the right
Well,
ones.
let's be fair. I'm literally looking at it on our show notes right now. As I scroll down, I will forget the name of the game.
All right. Well, I feel like normally this would be where we talk about expectations and first impressions, but we kind of did.
Yeah.
Like, terrible name, great design team. I don't universally love all of AEG's games, but they tend to have more hits than misses for me. So, publisher-wise, seems solid enough. So, certainly worth diving into, but I don't know if I was expecting... I don't know what I was expecting going into this. I'll put it that way. Sean, rules. Did you learn this from the rulebook or somewhere else?
I learned this from a teach of Eugene. Yeah, Eugene taught this game. I subsequently taught this to Raquel. We actually played this after Thor. I've gone over the rules. It's a pretty straightforward rule set. It's a pretty simple game in a lot of ways. I think the probably the hardest thing here are the special cards, because they might tell you to do things in a certain order, or they might say do any order. But other than that, it's pretty simple. I mean, I kind of want to teach this to Chewy. I feel like the special action cards might be difficult for her. I don't know. But overall, I think it's a pretty straightforward rule book and relatively easy to learn and easy to teach.
Sean, this is not the fault of the rule book. Let me be clear on this.
Okay.
But we had a false start play of this.
Ooh.
Because in our first play of this, I, being me, didn't properly read over, and to be clear and fair to the rulebook, it is written in plain English in End of an Era, and it's also mentioned in Flow of Play in terms of a gameplay overview. What do you think I didn't do, Sean?
You didn't wipe the board.
I didn't wipe the cube,
Wow.
Sean. And Abby asked me midway through the second era, it seems like we're going to run out of cubes. Are you sure this is how we're supposed to be doing this? Is like, I think so. But man, it's really easy. You get a lot of points in this game. This is weird.
That's some serious user error. Serious.
Yeah, not the fault of the game. My fault.
Wow.
Other than that, very easy to understand. In plain English, has referenceable spots for cards, good examples. I felt like a dummy. Abby mandated that I call myself out on how much of a dummy I was on this. So, yeah, you wipe the cubes. unless they're villages or discovery towers or previously discovered things that are exhausted, you wipe it. It's off the board. Take it away. Don't be a dummy. That's the whole point of this game. You explore a bit, and then you have to reset, and then you explore a bit. And you have to. That's how the game works. It doesn't function if you don't do that. Rulebook, I would say, as a positive of the game as a whole, I just was dumb.
Okay.
Learned it from the rulebook. Agree with you. Well laid out. Good rulebook. No complaints.
Sure.
Components. Art and components. Sean, I have beef with this game.
Is it the fiddliness?
No.
Oh, okay.
Not at all.
Huh.
This game has no insert. Why does this game not have an insert?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Were you playing Empire's copy?
Yeah. I mean, there's
Okay.
bags. We have bags.
You have bags, but you have a bunch of decks of cards that have nowhere to go. This game has no insert, Sean. It had, to be clear, it has an insert. The insert cuts off 2/3 of the box so that there's a giant space for everything to just fall into.
Oh, it's a well. It's a well for shipping.
It's a well. It's a well of stuff. It keeps nothing separated and organized. You just
Sure.
kind of throw all the bits together.
Sure.
Which might have been okay if not for this other thing, which is the coins. The coins in this game are denominations of 1, 5, 10, and 50. That's fine. They're all the same color and size.
Yeah.
And on one side, they're all the same. On the other side, they have the number. Now, in some games where keeping the amount of money or points secret is important, great. This game is, you cannot affect what other people are doing. Certainly not on the basis of points, at least in the rules and games I've played through. There's nothing where I take from you if you have more than me, or I'm racing against you, and if you haven't cracked a threshold, or what, take your pick. Like, this isn't a game where resources are limited, where if you don't have a certain amount of money to pay for a thing, you can't do it, and therefore it's important for me to know, and that might or might not need to be secret. It's just a way to keep track of points. It could have been a track. It could have been any number of things. It's coins. The coins are all the same. It's terrible. I don't like that.
Yeah. This game, so a game like Small World, I think there's some importance in keeping the score secret there. This is not one of those games. This is a stretch. This is devil's advocate, but I don't even really believe this. The only time it might be important is if you say, okay, this card just got flipped. I can be risky. And if the next two cards flip in this order, I'm setting myself up and I'll get a ton of points if I do it this way. But if I'm wrong, if it flips in the other order, then I'll actually not do as well, lose out on points. And maybe I see that, oh, well, I'm comfortably ahead of this other person, so I'll play it safe. Or, hey, I'm behind this person. If I don't take this risk, I'm gonna lose this game. Maybe, but it doesn't. No, I mean it doesn't really matter. It's a poor choice, and I think it slows down the gameplay a little bit as you're looking for. Oh, let me grab this 5. Oh, wait a minute. I needed a 1 or whatever. Yeah, it didn't make sense. I didn't care for that.
And it's not like you have a tray. Again, no insert. You don't have a tray where you can sort them into their various respective denominations. So they all just kind of get jumbled up. I guess if you have enough bags, which the game doesn't provide, but if you had enough bags, in theory, you could separate them out into here's all the 1s, and here's the 5s, and here's the 10s, and here's the 50s. You could do that, but the game doesn't provide you the resources to do it, and I don't think there's enough gameplay justification to do what they've done.
Yeah, and I think, so take this for what it's worth. I do own the game, purchased the game, because I knew Raquel would like this quite a bit. And I will very likely purchase a set of coins to replace the coins. Because I enjoy the game enough. Raquel enjoys the game enough, but it needs that little bit of help. And it was an unfortunate choice, I think.
So from those standpoints, not good. From an art and actually looks engaging standpoint, I think the game looks stunning.
Agreed.
It looks beautiful. The maps look beautiful. The two-sided, player aids are great. I had a thing, occasionally you might bump something or a village might end up in a different place. It's a little fiddly in that way. Not in a really problematic way for my play of this. And I love, Sean, the board that they provide that shows you these cards have been played this round. These are cards still to be played this round. You can see that at a glance and see, oh, the 3 C spaces in a line card hasn't come out yet. Oh, my Era 2 card hasn't fired yet. That's coming up later in this round at some point. You can see that at a glance and kind of do some planning and do it quickly. That was a smart component choice. They could have gotten rid of that, and I guess the game would have been functional, but I'm glad they didn't because I think it adds something to it. So you have that. You have distinct enough terrain and beautiful maps, and so that it gets a lot of things right. It's an appealing-looking game for all of the blandness in the title and some of the other component complaints. So there are some things that hold this back component-wise, but as a whole, I do think it looks good as a production.
So let me ask you this: would this? And I don't have an answer. This is just sort of a throwing it out there. Would this game be better, worse, about the same if it were on dry erase mats, and you had dry erase markers, and then you just when you get a village, you put a little star on it. When you cover up a ruin, you put a little X through it or whatever. Otherwise, you're just doing like lines or dots or whatever. Then you erase those.
I think because you need to distinguish between, hey, I've been to this place and used its ability, or I've explored this place, this era, and it's a place I can explore from. Because that distinction is important enough within the gameplay, I think it actually needs to be the way it is.
I think you're probably right. Just sort of a little thought experiment, so to speak.
And look, we'll get to guild thoughts later, but there was some discussion about, hey, this is basically just a roll and write or a rando writer, a flip and fill, take your pick. This is a welcome to style game, but without the pen and without the writing. And that's all well and good. I do think the cubes add something to it. I liked adding those out in a line.
Can you imagine if you were like, your only experience with modern board games was like flipping rights or rolling rights, and then you played this and you're like, wow, this is a revolutionary step forward. Who would have thought to use like components, to use wood, and to use cardboard cutouts?
It's like you're a two-dimensional cartoon character that's been pulled into the 3D world. Oh boy. Yeah. So I don't know. Yes, I think this needed to have components. I think it's better for having components. And I can understand you could, in theory, do this without that. I think it functions better the way it is.
Probably,
yeah. So that's art and components, unless you have anything else there, Sean?
No, I think we got that covered.
Okay. Gameplay. So we've said some negative stuff about this game so far, Sean. Bland name, and iffy component choices. I think it's a pretty compelling game, Sean.
I think it's really good.
And what's interesting is there was a guild thought, which again we'll get to in specific detail later, that thought this might be too light for you.
Yeah,
you don't find this too light.
I saw that, and that might hurt its longevity, and it. I feel like there may be replayability issues. So, we'll be talking later about what Hadrian's Wall. There we go. Hadrian's Wall. And the complexity of that game, in my mind, helps with the replayability. And that's not to say that light games can't have replayability, but at a certain point, I don't know. So I don't know about the long-term longevity with this game. But right now, I like it quite a bit. We're going to play this at SeanCon. Like, it's going to hit the table a couple times. Maybe not by me or you, but multiple times. But we're going to play this game. It's quite good. I like it quite a bit. And yeah, it's lighter. It's definitely a lighter game. It is kind of like a lighter roll and write or flip and write. It's not as complex as Hadrian's Wall, but I enjoyed this quite a bit. I will be very curious to see what I think of this game a year from now at the Double Take and how often I've played it since. But I enjoyed it enough. And when I first played it, I recognized Raquel is really going to enjoy this game too. And so I picked it up. And I'm
Abby,
even talking about having, upgrading it with better coins.
Abby liked to loved this game.
Sure. Yeah.
It's puzzly. There is very, very light player interaction, to be clear. So if you like player interaction in a game, this game doesn't really have it. It's simultaneous turns, and really the only interaction is who's going to get to the goal first. That's it.
I didn't mention there are these 3 objective cards. Do these certain things first, you're going to get 10 points. If you don't do it first, but you do it at some point, you're going to get 5 points. That's sort of the level of interaction. I do feel like this is a game that will be well served by an expansion that maybe adds a little bit of interaction, whether it comes down to, whoever has a majority of this is going to get a certain number of points. I mean, I don't want this game to be mean. I don't want there to be a take that element. I don't want there to be some sort of limitation on resources or anything like that. But I do think it would benefit from that. So like this reminds me kind of Karuba in a certain sense, right? Where one player flips over a tile, hey, it's 26, everyone find your 26. This is a little bit different because you do have those different action cards that do spice things up a little bit. But it's still kind of, yeah. Like Karuba's a lot lighter, a lot simpler. And this is, I feel like I would like a little bit more complexity here, but I'm not necessarily holding that against the game right now. But like I said, the long-term longevity of the game might be affected by that.
Here, I have some counter arguments on a couple of fronts.
Sure.
And in describing them, it will help, I think, spell out why I love this game as much as I do. And love may be strong. Strongly like. Maybe love. I don't know. Replayability. So I never liked Karuba that much. Mm-hmm. And part of it was because of not an actual problem, but a theoretical problem.
Oh, God. Yeah. Okay.
You remember this discussion?
Yeah.
In Karuba, in theory, you could copy what someone else is doing. There's nothing in the game that says, I can't do exactly what you, Sean, are doing every single turn. And we would end up with the same score, and there's nothing in the game that would stop that. Right?
What an exhausting world you must live in, Alex. Go on.
I get it.
Go on.
I get it. A theoretical problem, but practically speaking, people don't play that way.
Sure.
What this game does is it says that's an impossibility because you do some light action building, deck building. I don't know how you would even describe it really. But basically, when those Era 1 cards come up, you have taken a different path from someone else. All of the cards in that deck are unique. I get 2 to pick from. One of them is my action for the rest of the game. As anytime Era 1 triggers the rest of the game, including the time I drew it, I'm going to do that action, and it is fundamentally different than your action. It might be, and I had this in my last game, explore as many sea spaces as you want in a straight line. Or for you, it might be, explore up to 5 grassland and sea spaces in a row. Or it might be double the number of coins you get from exploring up to 3 mountain spaces. Changes everything.
Yeah.
When you get those cards, in what order, and what you choose is a really interesting decision and sets you on a different path from someone else the rest of that game. Mm-hmm. It also creates a real beauty in this. I think part of what helps the replayability of this, Sean, is even if you play the same map, you're going to get different action cards in the eras that are going to completely change how you play. The goals will change your motivations for how you play. And guess what? Those era cards and even the basic deck, the order in which it comes out will affect what actions you can even take, where you can even go on the map, and what makes sense to go to. The last round of the last game I played of this, the cards came out in such an order that I wasn't optimized well for it.
Yeah.
I didn't have villages set up. I'd only set up 2 villages from the first 3 eras. And so I was hamstrung in terms of being able to get to other parts of the map. I had cards that worked well enough together that I was able to cobble together enough points to stay ahead. But the order of those cards and the foundation on which I built things, I chose not to go for villages. I chose to go for more powerful objectives, to build trading posts. I made decisions for how I built my map. That's hard to optimize game to game. And the cards you get and the order they come in will cause you to take different paths to get to the same point. If you try the same strategy again and again and again, it's not going to work. You're not going to get the cards for that to make sense.
Sure.
That's why I think the replayability in this game's strong. It's that explore deck. It's that action deck. The order and the diversity of cards that you can potentially get that has you play maps in different ways. And the game itself has 4 different maps you can play on. So there's one that has mountainous regions that you can't explore and that limits whole chunks of the map and might benefit you to pursue more of a sea strategy, or might pursue you to, I got one on the map that had that, where you have areas you can't set up villages in because it's just mountains full of coins. It's just gold mountains. I got a card that doubled up the coins I get from exploring mountains, which is part of why I didn't have any villages, because I was spending so much of my explorability not exploring anywhere useful other than just getting points from the mountains and doubling it.
Right.
That's why I think this game works so well, is because it sets you on diverse paths, and it sets you on your own individual puzzle you have to figure out.
Okay. Yeah, no, I like it. I like it. Like I said, I'm just curious. I'm curious how I'm going to feel. We talk about whether a game makes me feel clever. This has it somewhat. Like, it's like micro cleverness, kind of. I think what made me feel the most clever was when I could mitigate the harm that would occur for cards flipping out of order, like not flipping the order of my choice, and kind of setting myself up to be able to take advantage of something no matter what. So there's some definite cleverness there, but it wasn't something where like I was getting that sort of endorphin rush anytime I like chain. Like there's like mini chaining together sometimes, but nothing crazy. At least I don't think.
Yeah. I would say that's not the core joy of this game.
Right.
There are moments where you can feel clever and I chain this together. And I like the fact that you can take risks. I, on the other hand, Sean, got a lot of joy out of, okay, if this card happens in this order and this one comes out in this order, then I can really bank points. But I have to take this move that's a little risky right now to even make that move eligible. And sometimes you win and sometimes you lose with that. There's going to be some people who are going to be annoyed, by the way, by the randomness of the deck of cards and what order it comes out in. Part of the game.
Sure. Yeah.
Not something that bugs me, but part of the game, and I'll acknowledge something that's not going to be for everyone.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, I'll say this. I don't feel like I have a lot more to say about gameplay.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'll say that I agree with you on, I wish there was a little more player interaction, but that puzzle you're solving and the reset between rounds is really cool in how it's executed.
Yeah.
Enjoyed the game a lot. So
and when I say I don't have much more to say about the gameplay, again, what is there I like quite a bit, but it is a lighter game.
Sure.
It definitely is. But again, I really enjoyed the experience, and we're probably going to play this quite a bit for the next couple months at least.
Yeah. Well, and I'll add, Sean, potentially multiple paths to victory. Do you go after discovery towers?
Sure.
Do you go after trading posts? Do you go for the goals more heavily? Do you go for treasure and mine the map that way? I like that too. So interesting decisions, not hard as a teach, works well, looks good on the table. All right. That was sort of a summary of the review, mainly because this next section is theme.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, not really. I mean,
Sean,
I guess.
Sean, I'm going to read it verbatim. Are you ready? Here's the theme.
Let's hear
The
it.
Queen has sent out a call to the Guild of Merchant Explorers, asking brave adventurers to voyage to all corners of the kingdom of Tigome. While the kingdom is flourishing, its maps have not been updated in some time, and its great cities have lost contact with one another. With your team of explorers, you will journey over rough seas, majestic mountains, vast deserts, and lush grasslands to establish trade routes between cities, visit far-seeing discovery towers, and discover new villages that have emerged. The player with the most coins at the end of the game wins.
Yep. Those are words collected together.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun. It's a fun. I mean, I get it. Like you have to branch out from where you're established, and then if you sufficiently explore a particular type of region, you've put down some roots there. Now you've got a village, and trade routes are important. Sure. All right. Yeah, you got it. This is a nice little 3X light game, I guess. And it's oozing with theme, dripping with theme. It's not.
Not every game, especially ones that have this level of elegance to it, and I think it's a relatively elegant game, have to have the most immersive theme.
Yeah.
It does not.
Let me ask you this. Were you telling stories about placing your cubes out?
No.
Okay.
At no point.
Yeah.
At no point.
Sure.
And sometimes that's a problem for me in a game.
Yeah.
It was not in this case. So perhaps even benefited by its own blandness in that way.
Okay.
Because I think if it had tried to be thematic in an over-the-top way and had failed, sometimes we do ding a game for that. It doesn't do that here from its name to its description. It is bland city, even though it looks great. It's bland. So bland. Oh.
All right, so we've got a parade happening down here apparently. Now Chewy's down here. Say hi, Chewy.
Hi.
You're supposed to say hi, Chewy, but that's fine.
Oh, right, yeah. It was a thing I did when I was probably 4 or 3.
This voice is freaking. I haven't heard Chewy's voice, I don't think, in a long time. This voice is freaking me out.
Okay. Here, come talk a little bit more. You're freaking Alex out because he hasn't heard your voice in a long time.
Okay. Hi.
Look, Sean.
The sanctity of the podcast recording has been pierced. First by Raquel, now by Chewy. I'm sure. Mariah, you want to come down? No. Mariah, you want to?
She left.
I know. I'm doing a little bit. I'm doing a little bit for the podcast.
Is Chewy going to be at SeanCon?
No. She'll be at dinner. Chewy will be at dinner. Yeah. Okay. Ditto. I love you, but we gotta finish the podcast.
Stay down here.
No, you gotta go up. We're finishing the podcast. Peace out. Love you.
Sean, we have to start up a parenting corner segment of the show at a certain
point. Oh my
here.
goodness. Yeah. Okay. Hey, let's do guild thoughts.
Guild thoughts. Sylvain Lacroix says this is a roll and write without the roll or the write. It is a very, very solitaire game that I actually really enjoy playing. I played solo most of the time, and even if this is a beat your own score, I still have fun. Games are quick, offer interesting decisions, and a little bit of frustration, which is normal for a puzzle-type game. It might be light, but it's also very easy and quick to put on the table and explain the rules. I don't see any interest to play it more players, except to teach the game, but I don't see this as a problem. It's my go-to game lately for a morning solo game on the weekend. I'll give this one a 4. And I'll jump the gun here, Sean. We rate everything here at the Dukes of Dice on a 6-point scale. 4 would be considered a good game, worth playing, just not all the time, belongs in the duchy. Solid score.
Yes, indeed. All right, and then BJ says, there's a lot to like for fans of lighter games. The concept is simple to teach. The flip of the small deck generates similar tension to Can't Stop or Ink and Gold. And the race/puzzle of trying to beat others to the objectives was surprisingly juicy. I like the conceit that it's supposed to be a rando rider, but one that resets part of your board each round. And we all said we'd play again. I'm predicting that it's too light for Sean and too dangerous for Ruby, but that Alex and Abby agree with me that it's a solid experience. And hey, I want to join the party too, BJ. I do think it's a solid experience.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's Guild Thoughts. Welcome to the party, Sean. I'm surprised at how high this is for you, but I'm pleasantly surprised, I should say. So I'll go first on this one because I think there's maybe less suspense. I'm curious where you'll end up exactly. So again, we rate things on a 6-point scale. Sean, as talked about, there's some things that really annoy me about this game. The poor insert, the coins, some awful things like that hold the game back. But I did catch myself saying love in terms of the gameplay of this as we were discussing the review. And I can't say that good adequately describes how much fun I had, and how elegant this is. The enjoyment of the puzzle and the interesting decisions that lay here. I think it's quite replayable, actually. And I love that they include the 4 maps to kind of take away any doubt of the replayability by giving you alternate modes of play and things to try out. It's a game that works solo if you like solo play. I don't. It's a game that's multiplayer solitaire. I can enjoy some of those games. I do. It's helped by the fact that Abby really likes this a lot. For me, it's a no-doubter 5. A great game will rarely turn on a play of it. I think a good chance I'll have introduced this to more people and played it in the year since we've had this discussion. I anticipate this one coming out during the holidays, Thanksgiving and/or Christmas. So, yeah, terrible name, iffy component decisions, but a phenomenal game under the hood and a winning design by the pair of Dunstan and Gilbert. Over to you, Sean.
Yeah, Alex, I'm going to give this a 5 too. A great game will rarely turn down a play of it. Now, again, this isn't one of those situations where I'm like, well, I can see this. It's probably going to drop at the double take. I'm not anticipating that. I'm just very curious if the replayability for me is going to last throughout the year. But you're right. This is something that, when we do kind of an adult dinner with some light games beforehand, this might be able to sneak in. I enjoy this quite a bit. I enjoy this quite a bit. There was at one point I was almost flirting with a 6, but no, it's not a 6. Maybe there's gonna be an expansion that really elevates it for me, but it's still a very solid 5. I mean, a very solid 5. I can kind of sense when I give a game a 5, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be a 4. I'm not saying that's gonna be the case, but it might.
Okay.
But I don't think it will be. So we'll see.
Right.
We'll see. I'm curious, Alex. I'm curious.
Well, that's the Duke's review of the Guild of Merchant Explorers. A surprise 5 from Sean and a 5 from me as well.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double Take.
All right, Sean, it's a Dukes Quadruple-Take. Let's motor on through this bad boy.
Yes.
Episode 252, Teenage Spaceland. An excellent name. I don't remember who had that name, but an excellent name. We were talking about the initiative. It was a non-Sean review involving Abby and myself. We played through the whole campaign of this. Abby, on her Abby scale, gave this one a sure or yeah, sort of a between a 4 and a 5. Basically, her response, if I ask, hey, do you want to play this game? It would be either a sure or a yeah. Enjoyable enough game. She thought the theme was well executed. It kept her engaged. She guessed we might have played this in the time since. She wasn't sure, but thought there was a good chance. I gave this one a low 5. I said, look, nothing quite like it. It had some awesome escape room elements. I enjoyed the story here. The enjoyment of the game, the core game itself, was more at a 4, but there was enough other stuff around it that brought it up to a low 5. One guild thought on this. Before that, were scores. We haven't played it since, and I think it belongs more squarely in 4 territory. So didn't play the extended campaign after the main campaign ended. Haven't really thought to bring it back out again. Sticks at, it goes down to a 4. BJ said, we have not finished our campaign yet, but have enjoyed playing the early games. It's a borderline complete abstract with the various characters and the comic book story attempt to overcome that. Can't say much without spoiling. I'll give it a solid 3 so far. Sean, my voice is on its last legs here. Oh, no.
Well, let me take over, Alex. I will support you when you can't support yourself with your voice, I suppose. All right, let's talk about episode 253, Santa Barbarians. My guess is we had Santa Barbara on the double take, with my guess. So we reviewed Hadrian's Wall. Alex, you gave it a 4. Poor rulebook structure, but game grew on me as I played it. Path cards and multi-use cards saved it. I gave this a 5. I loved every play, but I did have some replayability concerns, although it was an insta-buy for me. So Alex, have you played this since?
I have not. And it doesn't change my score of the game. I think the game itself is solid enough to be a 4. It's deserving of that score, but it hasn't motivated me to break it out again. If I saw it on the table at a convention, if someone wanted to play it, if Abby wanted to play it, I'd happily play it. But this isn't one that rises to great in my mind. It's too much complexity to have that level of accessibility to kind of get right into it. Sean, have you played this one since?
Oh, I have several times. And guess what, Alex? I'm bumping it up. I'm giving this game a 6. A 6, Alex. I love this game. This is my absolute favorite, flipping right, rolling right, whatever you want to call it. I think this game is awesome. It is complex. It's a bear to teach. I wish it were easier. I remember when Mitch almost had a nervous breakdown learning this game at the last SeanCon. But no, I love this game. I think it's fantastic. And hey, I'd be happy to play it at SeanCon. So, not so much. Okay. All right. So I will read the guild thoughts because again, Alex, I'm here for you. So BJ says, I only have one play, but wow, it is definitely the meatiest rando writer out there. I thought that Riddle and Pinchback's big Euro, the roll and write games were crunchy, and they are both crunchy and fun, but Hadrian Wall's combination of tactile resources, bubble wrap popping combos, and seemingly endless ways to score points was even juicier. By the way, juicier is BJ's word of the week. I'm leaning to a 4, but can see it maybe a 5 with more plays. You like that, Alex, didn't you? I'm killing you. Oh man, this feels good. All right. And then Brett Mowers says, after the first play or two, the feeling of being overwhelmed by choices across both sheets is significantly less, and I find it fun to explore different types of strategies each time I try. The designer uploaded a free print and play campaign, which has given it a bit more life. While I think it will burn out for most people after 5 or 6 plays, I'm still eager to get better. It's a 5 for me. Hold the phones. I didn't know anything about this print and play campaign. I'm going to go check that out when we're done with the podcast because that sounds awesome. And I'm totally down for that. So Brett, thank you for letting us know about that. Big, big thanks.
So that'll do it for the quadruple take. Goes from a 5 to a 6 for Sean, who's going to go and print and play a campaign immediately. And stays at a 4 for me. Sean, before we wrap things up, the best of the rest. And normally I would start first and do 3 of these. I'm going to have you start first and do 3 of these.
All right, fair enough. Alden Bruce suggested Flip Forward. The flip is coming from, we're talking about some flip and write games. Well, sort of. More flipping, less writing, which is why flip was probably used. Moving forward, flipping forward, kind of the exploring out there. I'm sure there's some progress to the campaign and the initiative. So yeah, flip forward. Alden Bruce, good job.
It's a reference to moving forward from pandemic related illness.
Ah, that too. Yes, I did see that.
And also the progression of time.
Excellent.
Next up, BJ with In Sickness and In Wealth. Referring to my recent illness, but also referring to the merchant's element of, well, the merchant game we talked about. You know, that one with the forgettable name that's actually really good. Anyway, BJ with In Sickness and In Wealth. Good name.
Yeah, and then Justin Jacobson suggested 4X Files, so a little X-Files play there. But there's a certain 4X element sort of to merchants and sort of to Hadrian's Wall, and then you've got the files from the initiative. So yeah, 4X Files. I like it.
Yeah. Thanks again to our future former sponsor, Justin Jacobson from Restoration Games, for that name. Next up, Stefan von Steim. Stefan, I'm very sorry. With Venice, Video, and Vici. And Sean, I am quite limber from all the stretching that this one does, but it's actually, I don't know, I liked it. It's referencing sort of the Roman theme of Hadrian's Wall with Veni, Vidi, Vici, Venice referencing the merchants of Venice, and Video referencing the popularity of VHS in the era in which the initiative is set. I always love a good roundabout way to a name, and this one definitely did it. Thanks for the name, Stefan.
And then finally, Archinger suggested guild thoughts. Because, hey, we have a guild. And the game, there's a guild. And we all have thoughts about games. Because why not? Was there more to it? Am I missing something?
No, you got it. It's a meta name because it's thoughts on the game, the Guild of Merchant Explorers, but also we frequently talk about guild thoughts throughout the show. It's clever. We do. Yes. Oh, Sean.
Yes.
Spare me. Free me from this prison. This podcast prison.
Let's get you out of here, Alex. All right, well, that's going to do it then for episode 278. Thanks again to Steve O'Rourke, the name father, for that episode title, All Over the Map. Until next time, this is Sean.
And Alex.
And Duke you later, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening
Stand
to the
down,
Dukes
Alex. Stand down.
Standing down. Okay.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on July 8th, 2022. Our theme music is provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to DukesofDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are proudly sponsored by Game Toppers. You can check out their awesome tables at GameToppersLLC.com. We'll see you back here in 1 week. Oh, and if it's not a Game Topper, it's not a showstopper. 1 week. We'll see you back here. 2 weeks, that too. Not 1 week, 2 weeks.
It might be 1 week.
Why is this no longer in the show notes, Alex? Until then, game on.